right, everyone. Welcome to episode 41 of the Detroit Sports Podcast, the Doc and Jock Sports Show. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me is my cousin, Adam Strozinski. What's going on, cuz?
Oh, not too much. I'm kind of excited. I see that inside the studio we've brought some new things in. We've got the bobblehead factory here, apparently. We've got autographed books. We've got all kinds of cool stuff. I like how the upgrades are going to the studio. This is great.
Well, with all the continued support from the podcast, we want to make it comfortable for the Jock to continue to bring the noise and to bring the entertaining value to this podcast. And knowing that the rest of your life is going to be over this Saturday, I had to do something to make you feel better. For those of you who are new to the podcast, the Jock, Adam Strozinski, is taking the plunge. Despite my advice, despite my telling him, listen, getting married before 35 might not be the best idea. You know, nowadays most men are getting married later. They're sowing their royal oats and they're having a great old time. But nope, my cousin Adam doesn't listen and he's taking the plunge. So, cuz, here's to you, buddy. Coors Light, just for you.
Oh,
cheers.
Thanks.
Cheers,
I appreciate it.
Cheers to a long, happy marriage. And if it's not good, just don't have any kids.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you very much.
It's all good. It's all good, cuz. Well, we got a lot to get to on this podcast. Yesterday's game versus Cleveland left us a lot to get to. Good road trip overall, 6-3. But looking at the series versus Cleveland, there were some issues that definitely came about that we're going to talk about. With our Tigers, we are going to play a round of Jock Jams. The Doc has 3 questions lined up for the Jock, and he's prepared to bring the noise, give us his insights regarding his opinions on all things sports related. Some topics nationally, some topics related to Detroit, and I'm 100% sure the Jock will bring the noise and give out great information. To wrap up the show, Tuesday night was the draft lottery, and the Pistons royally got screwed. If you stay tuned in the second half of the podcast, Adam and I will definitely give our thoughts regarding the Pistons, the awful evening that took place on Tuesday, and what that means for the 2014-2015 season. Cuz, you ready to kick this bad boy off?
Can't wait. Let's do it.
All right. 6-3 road trip, sweeping the Baltimore Orioles, number 1 in the AL East. Then they go to Boston, who obviously is not the same team that won the World Series. Their offense has slipped, which is why, they shelled out the $10 million to Stephen Drew, which was the same contract, just prorated. So he took the money and, he could have waited and maybe gotten a little bit more, but I just think he got a little stir crazy and the timing was right. Got $10 million for this one season, and the Tigers went into Boston, got silly, went off on Boston 3 games straight because something happened at the end of that Boston series. They get on the plane, they're waiting to get to Cleveland. They're waiting. And I can only imagine what happens when someone comes out and is like, well, we have some mechanical problems. And so they have to get off the plane on Sunday, fly to Cleveland for the game Monday, get to Cleveland about 2 p.m. for a 7 p.m. game. And that's when they start rocking their Zubaz pants and all that stuff, going crazy on social media. And I don't know about all that stuff. I just think they need to tone that kind of stuff down. But they get swept, and surprisingly, with Verlander and Scherzer back-to-back. Now, Scherzer didn't take the loss in Wednesday's game because the Tigers climbed back, but they blew the game not once, but twice, and we're going to talk about that. Because overall, the Tigers, I believe, are 27-15, heading into a series, a weekend series versus Texas. Are you buying or selling the Tigers as being the best team in Major League Baseball?
I'm selling right now. You've seen it with this bullpen. I think this bullpen it's a dumpster fire. I tweeted out, I don't know if Phil Koch rolls around in gasoline before he takes the mound, because when he goes out there, he just sets himself ablaze. So until this bullpen gets shored up, I'm not buying anything. Yes, this stretch where they've just gone on a tear, just winning games, and now they've kind of come back down to earth, losing to the worst team in our division, Cleveland. It just that the bullpen is a glaring weakness. If those starting arms aren't firing on all cylinders, you got to go to that bullpen early. And when you go to that bullpen early, my stomach gets turned up into knots, and I get scared. I get nervous. I don't think they can win a World Series right now with that bullpen being the way it is. It's just so bad. It's a glaring need. You've seen it in these games against Cleveland. They just go out there and they're just throwing meatballs over the plate, and Cleveland's just cranking them out of the park. Or you're balking runs in, like Albuquerque did against Cleveland on Wednesday. It just, until this bullpen gets shored up, I don't think you can sit there and you can sell them as the best team in Major League Baseball.
Okay. Right now, that's a great question. I am buying. I completely disagree with you. I just think, you know what? You have to look at it as this is a long season. You remember, we spoke to Denny McClain on this very podcast. You asked him, are they going to win the World Series? And he turned around and checked you and was like, are they going to win the division? And we got to take things in perspective. You take things in quarter chunks. And so 27-15 after 42 games isn't bad. They're in first place by at least 5 games. I believe it was 7 as of Wednesday night in the AL Central. So as of now, we're a first place team. We're a playoff team, and a team that we have to kind of compare ourselves to that is likely going to be a playoff matchup is Oakland. You sent me an email earlier. It said they're playing at their winning percentage is about .644, and they're playing great baseball out there in Oakland. And it seems like we play them quite often and have some good success against them. But you got to break it down as in terms of, you know what, they were on the road. Road trips are tough, especially they can get grinding. And Cleveland has a bone to pick, because last year Detroit rolled up after the All-Star break and just kind of owned Cleveland the second half of the season. And so I give them credit for standing up to the Tigers, and Wednesday's game was just off the wall. Yes, the number one concern is the bullpen. The number one concern that is glaring is why are they continuing to trot out Phil Koch?
What the hell's going on out here?
Game after game. You get an inning out of him where he doesn't walk batters or he doesn't give up the game-tying run or the game-winning run, and you trot him out there again. Now, granted, it was Gene Lamont, not Brett Ausmus, who got tossed for arguing, standing up for Miguel Cabrera. I give Miggy all the credit. The umpire in Wednesday's game was god-awful. For both sides, I mean, he was calling balls and strikes that were, not consistent, and balls that were outside the strike zone, he was calling strikes. And so Miggy definitely got highly upset, and then he got himself ejected. But 27-15, you got Miguel Cabrera and Victor Martinez doing their thing. Clutch hits. And so the only glaring weakness besides the bullpen is obviously at shortstop, where you have a combination of Romine, who's great defensively, but he's just not doing enough offensively. So they're kind of platooning it with Andrew Romine and Danny Worth. So just in your opinion, do you think that they're going to stick with that combination, or do you think by the trade deadline they should make a move at the shortstop position?
I think they stick with that. I think they stick with the situation for now. I think if something opens up and something presents itself, I think you always look to upgrade your team. And Dave Dombrowski, I think that's kind of his philosophy anyways. He is always looking to upgrade his roster by any means necessary. And we know he's a wizard with the trade. I mean, the guy does miraculous things, just trading with people, and usually bilks them out of just awesome pieces. I mean, look at Miguel Cabrera. That was done in a trade. So I think for now, they will stick with that. But if something opens up, don't be surprised if they do make a trade for another piece for a shortstop. I just don't think you want to mess with the team's chemistry right now. I know you brought up the thing about them wearing the Zubas, and that kind of bothered you a little bit. I think that's great. That shows that this team is united. This team is together. There's a lot to be said about team chemistry, and I don't think you want to mess with the team chemistry. Yeah, this series in Cleveland kind of sucked, and they did kind of get shellacked here, but I don't think you really want to mess with what they have going on. Because right now, I mean, they're a unit. They're one. And, I mean, sitting there taking goofy pictures dressed up in Zubas, mean mugging for the camera, that stuff's funny. That stuff's great. I think it's awesome. I don't think that you mess with a good thing right now. Take your lumps. It's a long season. Take your lumps. Big deal. You lost one series. Who cares? It's the Cleveland, the worst team in our division. You just move on, and you just kind of keep working. What they really need to address is that bullpen. I'm gonna disagree with you. Until that bullpen gets fixed up, you can't buy this team as a World Series type team. There's no way in hell you can do that. It's a dumpster fire when they go out there. If the guys who are in the starting rotation aren't doing their job, you've seen it with JV, you've seen it with Scherzer. They had rough starts these last couple games, and then you got to go into that bullpen, and then it's hands off because you don't know what the hell's going to happen. It's very, very shaky with that bullpen once they take the mound.
But besides Wednesday's game where he blew, where he gave up the home run in the 9th inning to tie the game at 9-9, Joe Nathan's done an admirable job. I mean, he's definitely had his issues early in the season. He settled down. No closer is perfect for the most part. They do blow saves from time to time, and it's definitely tough on the road to close out games. Now, the game Wednesday was most disappointing because we fought back, after giving up a 4-1 lead. We came back and
the bullpen is much deeper than just Joe Nathan, though.
Exactly.
You've got Phil Koch, who is the guy is flammable. Let's just put it that way. You got Al Albuquerque, who will sometimes go out there and give you a really good game, or other times he'll go out there and he just looks lost on the mound. Then you've got Jabba Chamberlain, who looks pretty decent. He really has kind of taken over that 8th inning role, and he looks pretty good. But even still, it's still kind of nerve-wracking with him. And then you got Joe Nathan, who has blown a few saves this year. And like you said, no closer is perfect. But he's blown his fair share of saves, and the season just started.
I just think you need to kind of consider what we're watching here. I don't know what obviously the bullpen is an issue, but no team is perfect. There's no perfect team out there. The Tigers right now have the perfect record, 27 wins. What more do you want? I mean, what is it going to take for you to jump on the bandwagon and just... What's
30 and 12?
30 and 12?
A sweep of Cleveland would have been great.
I just think that maybe sometimes you need to be a little bit more positive, and not so... Because I think you're going to really give yourself an ulcer if you're going to nitpick this much.
I'm Negative Nancy. That's what I bring to the show.
Listen, Negative Nancy, you're going to have to be positive for at least the next couple weeks, because I foresee at least a 2-2 series versus the Rangers. I think that coming up, we're going to play great baseball back at Comerica Park after this long road stand. Because they went 6-3. I mean, they're not going to go, most of the time you're happy with at least 5-4 or 500 ball. And so they got off to a hot start, smoking Baltimore, smoking the Red Sox, making them look silly. So they can't blow through the whole season and just blow everybody out. You're going to have some up and down series where things don't fall your way. Obviously Torrey Hunter is smacking the ball great. We hope he keeps that up. Victor Martinez is really, really doing his thing in a contract year. He's earning his... Victor Martinez is making everyone say, Prince who? Prince Fielder, who is not making the trip to Comerica Park because of his injury to his neck. So we're not going to get a chance to boo the hell out of Prince Fielder this weekend. But I just think that you need to stop for a minute, smell the roses, enjoy 27-15.
Here's the deal. I don't get real high when they sit there and they roll into Baltimore and they smoke Baltimore. They roll into Boston and they beat the pants off Boston, and then they turn around and they sit there and lose a game to Cleveland. I'm not going to get real low on them. My concern has been, since basically the beginning of the season, has been what is going to happen with this bullpen. The way this bullpen has been constructed has just been flawed from the get-go, and I sat there and I bitched about Dave Dombrowski. Some of the moves Dombrowski has done have turned out to be great. They really have. He knows what he's doing, all right? It just, you see it with this bullpen almost on a day in, day out basis. It's not good. It's very scary. It's not a World Series caliber bullpen at this point. Let's look at the upcoming schedule here. We got a 4-game set against Texas. You think they're going to go 2-2?
I think they'll split.
Okay. Then they have a 4-game set at Oakland.
Oh, that's going to be telling. That's going to be a potential ALCS matchup right there early on. Because right now, the American League is not all that great. The teams are kind of hovering around 500. The majority of the teams are kind of like, 22-17, 22-18 that are in the division leads. That matchup is going to be must-see. So it'll behoove the Tigers to be playing well going into that series.
During that series, Oakland's going to get Detroit's 2 best pitchers, which is Scherzer and Porcello right now. And I say that, and that might raise an eyebrow or two, but I say that. Verlander, according to record and according to what you're seeing when they're out there, those are the 2 best pitchers right now for the Tigers. So you're going to get those 2 in Oakland. So do you think they're going to split? Do you think maybe 1-3, 3-1? I don't think they're sweeping Oakland.
No, I don't think they're going to sweep Oakland. I just think that, it's gonna really depend on the hitting. I just think that in Oakland, the Tigers have sometimes difficulty generating runs, and the Tigers are gonna have to continue to play the style that they've been playing. Get the runners across, get the key hits, and now stop giving up key runs in later innings with the bullpen. And I think that, the Tigers have a couple blowouts in them. They have an offense that can put up some runs, and they can compete at the highest levels, and I think they're going to be up for that series because everyone's going to be, if the Tigers go 2-2, they're going to continue probably to have the best record in all of baseball, and Oakland's going to be trying to knock them off. And I think that will fuel the competitive fires, and I think Scherzer and Porcello give us quality starts. That's all you can ask for, cuz quality starts. They're not giving up a ton of runs. If we look back in a couple weeks, the series versus Cleveland will be an outlier. Like I said, I think
you need these guys to get you into the 8th inning, though.
Yes, you do.
I really feel you need these guys to get you to Jabba, and once you get to Jabba, that sets up really nicely for Joe. And once Joe's in there and he's comfortable in that 9th inning role, I think he's okay.
Yeah, for you, I can understand. Once it gets tight in a one-run game, most of the fans are not comfortable. It's just because we know. I tweeted out Dead Arm Gang. We named the bullpen the Dead Arm Gang. The reason why I'm buying is that I have confidence that this team chemistry, these guys are close, that the addition of Torrey Hunter is really, really, when you look back on it, a really significant force for this team. He is a uniting factor. He's got a lot of experience. He's had a long history playing in the AL Central when he played with Minnesota. So the addition of Torrey Hunter to this team is very, very significant. And,
All right,
and,
let's
and
get
he's
this back. Let's get this back on track.
Did you see?
You're going off on a tangent
No,
here.
did you see his home run? Cause
Yes.
he cleared the green monster.
Yes, he put a lot into it. You're getting off track there.
But I'm buying. Keep buying. I want you to buy.
So what are you doing with Oakland? What's going on with that Oakland series? Are they splitting with Oakland?
Splitting with Oakland.
All right.
2-2.
So now they're 4-4. All right, out of the 8 games, we've got 2 games, and then you got 2 games against Seattle, and then it puts you into June, where you're going to start the month off with the 1 game at Seattle. So with those 2 games in Seattle to wrap up the month of May, what are they doing?
Okay, so you're talking about 10 games rest of the month?
Yes.
10 games rest of the month. I give them at least 5-5, 6-4.
Oh, you sound so staunch and you're buying of this team. 6-4, 5-5, really?
Listen,
500 baseball?
Listen, 500 baseball is all you
And you're waving a banner for this?
Oh, hey, right now you
500 baseball, we're the best team in the whole AL.
Listen,
All of MLB, we're the best.
you just came off of 6 wins straight before the Cleveland series. I kind of do see that, the ebbs and flows of the season, and you're playing a lot of road games. You're playing a lot of teams that, listen, once you become the MLB leaders and everyone's got a target on your back, they're going to give you your A game. Look at Cleveland. Obviously, Cleveland's in the cellar. They got up for the Tigers. I think everyone's going to be more hyped to play Detroit because they're bringing in a talent, and it's a measuring stick. And once you see the Tigers on your schedule, you're going to have to step it up.
You know what's messed up? I'm selling on the Tigers, and I'm going to put them at 7-3 out of the next 10 games to get you into June. And I'm selling the Tigers.
It's all good. They're the best team.
You're over there waving a banner talking about how this is the best team in all of the MLB. And you're like, oh, 500 baseball's great. Get the hell out of here.
500 baseball, they'll still be 10 games over 500.
Get the hell out of here. We got to go to a break. Let's go to a break.
Look at here, cuz. We gave out the phone number, 248-579-8686, and we got our first call. Looks like we got Steve and Fraser looking to join us on the Detroit Sports Podcast. What's up, Steve?
What's going on, guys?
Oh, man. Tough series versus Cleveland, man. They swept us.
Oh, that sucks. We lost to Ohio. To Ohio.
Yeah.
By all places. Ohio. I mean, it just, especially, I hate Nick Swisher.
You know what? Especially after coming off a sweep of Boston, that's what you put up versus Cleveland. I mean, and they beat Verlander and Scherzer back to back. Are you kidding me?
Well, I mean, they went after Verlander. Verlander was off his game. He was off his game last night, and tonight they hit both. But Lamont goes with Phil Koch. Are you kidding me? I mean, that you kept him in for another inning. You could have brought Evan Reed in. I mean, the bullpen had to blow something, and it did.
Now, Steve, let me ask you this. Adam and I were debating earlier on before you called. We did buy or sell. I believe that you should believe in this 2014 Tigers team. Jock Adam over there, he thought that he's selling because of the weakness of the bullpen. Just in your opinion, do you think this is a team that can contend for the World Series, or are you just like Adam thinking that this bullpen is the detriment of this team?
They can contend for a World Series, but they got to get the bullpen better. They got to bring up some young kids in the bullpen that can pitch. Hanrahan, is he ready? I don't know. They got that kid Kyle Lobsenstein or whatever his last name is. They can bring him in. They need help in that bullpen.
Steve, I'm going to tell you this much. You're out of your mind right now if you think they can contend for a World Series. There's no way. That bullpen is a giant sieve on this team right now. There's no way in hell they can compete for a World Series. You've seen it in the series with Cleveland. Every time they sat there and they kind of got the lead, they put the bullpen guys in and they just blow it. If the starting rotation's not hitting on all cylinders, shit's hitting the fan. It's pure and simple.
Well, Robbie Ray's pitching well, and they hit us today. I mean, the mechanics on both Verlander and Scherzer were way off today, and Joe Nathan had a bad day. But I mean, we still got the best starting rotation in baseball, and Mickey should have kept his cool. I mean, Osmus had to go out there and run after him and say, "Hey, get back in there." But just this weekend was just terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't good. That's for damn sure. And you're right, Miggy probably should have kept his cool, but I think Miggy had a legit beef. He was just saying, hey,
the umpire
go down and get some help from the first base umpire because you're just calling whatever you want to call here.
in the shortstop position, they've already called up. I don't know if you guys seen this on the Freep, but they're bringing up that Shiraz kid from AAA he's already in Toledo, so he might get called up soon.
We'll see what happens. You know what? With shortstop, John and I were talking about it, and I think they're probably going to sit tight right now with what they got going because that locker room has a really good vibe going in it right now, and I don't think you want to mess with the chemistry of that locker room.
I mean, Victor Martinez is a stud. You need to pay that man right now. Give him a 2-year deal and say, here.
Steve, let me ask you this. You rocking the Zubaz this weekend?
I don't have any. I do not have any. I looked on their website and I said, wow, that's Fanatic U has a pair, and I'm like, oh, that's a little cheap there. That's a little expensive.
Man, I just think, I was telling Adam, I think it's just a bunch of BS that, you know what, yes, I'm all for team chemistry and all for things like that, but I think it's time for business. It's time for the season. It's time for us to hunker down and contend and do and what we need to do is obviously continue to beat up on the teams that we're supposed to beat. And now, coming up in the next couple weeks, we got a 4-game series versus Texas, and then out on the road versus Oakland. You looking forward to the next couple weeks?
Yeah, I am. I think Texas tomorrow afternoon. You got Darvish. The guy's a stud. He's a good pitcher. We just got to go after him. You know, we just got to, and don't put Don Kelly in. That guy sucks. Yeah, I mean, it's Uncle Jim's nephew, and I found that out at a bar. Guy from Pittsburgh told a friend of mine, oh, yeah, that's his nephew. Really? Shocker. Didn't know that. No wonder he's still on the team.
So just before we wrap up, what's your take on Brad Ausmus? Are you happy with the first-year manager? I mean, obviously kicking off a 27-15 record ain't too shabby.
No, he's doing good. He's doing way better than Leland. I think I don't think we would have had this mark if Leland was still manager. I think he's got some Sparky in him. I think he coaches. He's a player's coach like Sparky was. And Sparky said in '84, I didn't coach these guys. These guys just went out there and play. And he's letting them go out there and play. There's little similarities with the '84 team, but I see similarities him and Sparky. He's just letting them go out there and play. He threw BP to Miguel Cabrera. What manager does that?
I just think that when it was first announced, everyone was kind of hesitant because this is a World Series team or bust kind of season. But he's showing enough so far in the first 40 games to warrant a little bit less criticism. He's doing a good job. It's just right now, again, like we've all talked about and we've all worried about, the bullpen is just a really glaring weakness, and we definitely got to shore it up going forward. Thanks for calling in, and call again for sure.
All right, thank you. Do I get credit for the Dead Arm Gang? Do I get some credit?
Okay, guys. For those of you who don't know, on Twitter, we put out a tweet and said, what should we name for this bullpen? And Steve is a frequent contributor on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. So we give you all the credit for the Dead Arm Gang. And
I appreciate that.
No problem, Steve. Thanks for being so supportive of our podcast, and thanks for pushing us to create that logo on our Twitter page. Thanks a lot, man.
No problem. No problem, guys. Big fan.
Thank you for calling in. Call back soon. Talk to you later.
All right.
Cuz you need to buy the Tigers being the best team in Major League Baseball. Turn that frown upside down, cuz. Come on. It's all good. It's okay. I'll try to convince you. As each podcast comes, I will try to convince you. And you'll see on the field.
You're doing a bad job.
I'll try to convince you that these Tigers are worth buying. And guys, don't no Doc and Jock curse anymore. Continue this hot streak. Now that the Doc is on board, is giving you his full support, don't let me down. Because we don't want to be negative all the time here. We want to give props when it's due. So I'm buying. The Jock is selling. Only time will tell. Stay tuned. After the break, we are going to play a round of Jock Jams. Stay tuned. All right, everyone. Thank you for your continued support, making this podcast really, really an enjoyable experience for Doc and Jock. I mean, we are continuing to get contributors to our podcast via our website, www.detroitsportspodcast.com. You can go to the website, and there's so many ways to support us. It's very easy. For one, you can click on the banner links. If you're going to shop online, if you're going to shop at Amazon, click through that Amazon banner, and they'll kick us back a little bit of something when you make your online purchase. Another way to support us, you can contribute via PayPal, $1 a month. That's all we ask. If every listener can contribute $1 that downloads our podcast, we can pay for the internet fees, and we can pay to keep the website going that's dedicated to all things Detroit sports. So check out our website, www.detroitsportspodcast.com. 24/7 deals on all sports gear, memorabilia, and tickets to all events in the city. Tiger tickets, you want to get out to Comerica Park? Check out our website. You can search for great ticket prices. So don't pay full price anymore. Check out our website, detroitsportspodcast.com. Thanks for everyone downloading this podcast every Thursday on iTunes. We really appreciate the support. Every single download we appreciate, and hopefully we let everyone know that we thank you and that we're very appreciative of all the support. Cuz, you ready for the pre-wedding edition of Jock Jams?
Let's do it, buddy.
All right, here we go.
Will you do it in the ass?
None of these guys do it for me.
My life sucks. I have an issue with my penis. It's not that hard. Might as well just come punch me in the dick right now. And I wanted to thank you for the dick pic earlier today. I think it was a monster hog, too.
On the NFL docket, word came out this week. Several players, including former 1984 Bear Jim McMahon, are suing the NFL again. Here are the claims. They're claiming that during their time playing, team doctors would falsify medical records, would not tell them that they would have injuries such as broken legs, nicked up ankles. They would say that the team would not tell them intentionally that they were injured, so they would play. And also they're claiming that the team would just give them pain medication instead of properly treating them. In your opinion, is this just another money grab, or do you think that these guys have a legitimate claim regarding team doctors?
Okay, while I don't disagree that those things went on, because that happens all the time in football, happens even at the high school level, it's part of football, it's what it is. If your leg is broken, or if you're that seriously injured, you will know that you're that seriously injured. You can go get a second opinion. You can go to your own doctor if you want, and then that doctor can send over his order to sit there with the team doctor, and then you guys can discuss a proper course of treatment. I think this is a complete money grab. I'm not doubting that all this stuff happened, but at some point you have to be smart enough and you have to be able to take care of yourself enough and go and do what's best for you as the player. So just go to your own doctor. Who cares what the team doctor says? Go to your own doctor. You know if your leg's broken or not. You know if it hurts when you walk. You know if you have a bad ankle. You know if you have a concussion. Like, you can tell. I've had many of them. You know when you have one. Things just aren't right. It's the best way I can describe it. Things aren't right. You know if something is broken. You know if something is torn. You know if you have a blown out knee. You know these things. Go get a second opinion. It doesn't hurt. You're a football player. You know what you do all day? You wake up, you eat protein shakes. After you eat protein shakes, you go work out. After you work out, you know what you do? You go spend probably about 6 hours at the team facility doing things for games. And then you know what you do? You got the whole entire day to yourself. You got like 18 hours to yourself. You mean tell me you can't go see a doctor in 18 hours? No, this is a money grab.
You know, I just think that there's a couple this issue has a lot of layers to it. I just think the football mentality is get on the field. And so a lot of these athletes would do anything, would give their right leg to get on the field and to do things for their team.
And that's respected and revered.
Yes.
But at some point, you have to do what's best for yourself, and in the long run, what's best for the team.
Exactly. And so, and I agree 100% with what you said. You know, your health is, and just like the rule with steroids, you're responsible for what you put in your body, despite what doctors tell you. Mm-hmm. And so I just think that these players are struggling with the fact that they are maybe not financially as stable as they once were, and they're not as healthy as they once were. They might have not taken care of themselves post-NFL career like they should. But I just think at the same time, I can understand where they're coming from in terms of, you know, maybe the trust in the team doctor is not there because they would, back in the day, the attitudes were different. The attitude was win at all costs, play on broken legs, do what you got to do. And so I just think now it's different because the league's attitude is different. So I think that these players might have more difficulty because, remember, the league settled on the concussion issue. So now if the players continue to sue the league, it's going to cause a problem. And so I think that the league will take a stand on this issue. So it'll be interesting. All right, cuz. Ndamukong Suh, finally made his appearance Wednesday at OTAs, and his speech was pretty politically correct until the end. In the end, when he was pressed by the media, this wasn't on his own, he was pressed when the reporters were asking follow-up questions, he did say, listen, I love Detroit. I could have balked. I could have used my power and yielded my power to not be drafted in Detroit. And so it just came off wrong, in my opinion. I understand the point he was trying to make. He's trying his best in his own way to change the attitudes about him. And he knows, he's well aware that his popularity has gone way down among the fans and among a lot of people. Because what was your opinion on Ndamukong Suh's comments regarding his ability? He said it. He was emphatic. I had the ability. I had the power to be drafted anywhere. And I chose to stay at number 2 and get drafted by the Lions. What was your take on that whole ordeal and his response with the media?
I think he comes off as just an asshole. Like, I really feel like Ndamukong Suh lives in his own little world. Like, he is completely insulated from what goes on the outside, and he only lets in what he wants to let in. And his response, he's so self-centered. He just drives me insane. Seriously, I think he comes off as an asshole. I think he sounds like he's a pompous ass. I think he comes off as he just makes everything worse when he speaks. It just be quiet already. You don't have to bring these things up. You don't have to say these things. You probably should have showed up for the team activities, and then good job, you showed up for OTAs. Okay, great. You just answer the questions and then move on. You don't have to sit there and you don't have to say these things, and you don't have to keep putting yourself in the spotlight. He likes to create all this drama in all these circumstances that have to surround him. It's just, there's no need for it. There's absolutely no need for it. I don't understand what he gains by doing this. I don't understand what his end goal is by doing this. I don't see what the purpose of this is. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? There's no need for it. You just come off as a loser. You come off as an asshat. And you make everything so cantankerous with your personality and the things that you do. There's no need for any of this. You really do put yourself out there as a really horrible teammate and as a guy that nobody really wants to be around or nobody wants to be near. He really makes it seem like it's him and then everybody else and then the team is just kind of how he comes off. And I just think that he should just keep his mouth shut at this point. Just be quiet. Just be quiet and just, if there's certain questions related to the team, answer those and then just move on about your business. I think he came off as an asshole. I really do.
Okay, yeah, obviously it didn't come off too well, and I just think that he's trying to change perception, and I just think that the way he delivered it was way over the top, and I just think that it didn't need to be said. It doesn't need to be said. It's kind of a given that players coming out of college, their initial reaction to being in Detroit is going to be, is there any way I can get out of it? Unless you're part of the city, unless you're born and bred in Detroit like you and I are, many people that come from the outside, their initial response is, ooh, they have to frown upon it. And so we know that. Everyone knows that. Until you become acclimated to the city, then you realize it's the greatest sports town. It's a great, the suburbs and the city of Detroit is rebuilding, and we're trying to do our best as we can to pick ourselves up. But you don't have to say those kind of things. You just need to keep, and like I said on Twitter, you just need to state a couple of things over and over, even if you are pressed. I love the city of Detroit. My agent's negotiating my contract, and my goal is to win the Super Bowl. That is my number one undying goal. You just got to repeat that over and over again. Super Bowl, Super Bowl. Just say those words, and you'll do a great job in the media. But when you say those things, it just alienates you. And
on top of it, the week leading up to this press conference, he was sitting there tweeting out stuff regarding how if people who are intimidated by you just sit there and just bag on you and hate on you. The reason why people hate on you is because you sit there and you put yourself in these positions and you come across as a jerk. Like, you put yourself out there and you just come off as an ass. Just stop.
That's it.
Just stop.
Just keep it simple. All right, to wrap it up, we have to talk a little bit of hockey. Playoffs are going on. Great conference finals, both in the East and the West. You got Chicago and the Kings battling. You got the Rangers and Montreal. What's been your take on these playoffs, and who do you see in the NHL finals?
Going into these playoffs, I was really concerned with the new format and how everything would kind of play out. And I've got to say, these have been some of the best and most captivating playoffs for the NHL that I've ever seen. Just, I guess, playoffs in general. These have been one of the best series of games I've seen in quite some time. Like, I'm riveted. I have to watch every game. I feel upset if I don't get to watch the games because they've been that good. The way it's shaping up right now and the way things look right now, it looks like we're going to have an original 6 matchup, and it does look like it's going to be Chicago and probably New York. And New York, I think, has a little bit of an easier road now because Carey Price has a banged-up knee, and he's hurt and he's going to miss the rest of the series. And that was one of the reasons why Montreal could go in advance was Carey Price. As far as Chicago goes, I think there's just too much talent, too much depth. And once you get Jonathan Quick rattled, it's not that hard to put pucks past him. And I think they're just so loaded up front with talent that they're just going to sit there and they're just going to ride off into the sunset and meet for the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, me personally, I can't watch the Chicago series because every time I see Marian Hossa, it triggers in my brain. Oh,
we could have
Franzen or Hossa. We chose Franzen. They got Hossa. The Wings did back the Brinks truck up, but maybe for the wrong guy. And so it stinks now that we have to second guess in terms of Franzen and Hossa, because Franzen at the time was putting pucks in the net consistently in the playoffs, and so he was younger, and so they decided to go in that direction. But looking at it now as we sit, Hossa's the better player. He is a strong, he's just a scoring machine, and he's a leader on that team. So I'm definitely tuning out that series. I'm definitely invested in the Rangers versus Montreal, and for the Rangers to go in there in Montreal, a place where Henrik Lundqvist struggled so much, to go up 2-0. Great performances, and I think, obviously, the Rangers have been motivated by Marty St. Louis. But also, a couple other things. Rick Nash is coming up, and he is putting pucks in the net. You have the defense is playing much better, and obviously, when Henrik Lundqvist is standing on his head, stopping 40 shots and giving his team a chance to win. I mean, because Montreal in Game 2 scores in the first period, 17 seconds later, the Rangers tie it up, and they go on to win with clean, crisp passes on the power play, putting pucks in the net and finishing the plays. It's set up for them, but you never say never. I mean, Montreal's going to have a lot of fight, and I agree with them for not putting in Budaj. I mean, he just in the regular season didn't do enough to give the coaching staff confidence in him to put him in a playoff game. So they went with the 24-year-old rookie who has won a lot of games in a lot of other leagues under the NHL. So they gave him a chance, and so we shall see what happens. But yeah, that Ranger series, tune in, is great. You're going to see some good hockey there. At the same time, too, the Blackhawks are, in my opinion, the best team. I just can't watch them because I get too angry.
On top of it, Budaj didn't really give you anything to really hang your hat on when he was put into that third period of Game 1. I think they ended up scoring 3 goals pretty quick, like within 5 or 6 minutes. So it was just like they'd come down, shot, goal, shot, goal, shot, goal, and there was no way for Montreal to even try to claw their way back. But yeah, you know what? Going into these playoffs, I had a buddy of mine who sat there and sent me a message and was like, "Yo, you think the Rangers can go all the way?" And I just kind of laughed at him. I was like, "There's no way. There's no way." Like I really don't understand how the Rangers are doing this, because for years they've had nothing but overpriced players who were always at the end of their career. And you kind of still have some of that, but I think Alain Vigneault has the magic touch, and he's got these guys working. I think Marty St. Louis was the kind of the piece that they needed. He was able to fit in and plug in, and then with the death of his mom, there was kind of the rallying cry for that team, and I think that kind of brought them all closer. We talked about chemistry earlier in the show, and I think team chemistry, you're seeing it right there with the Rangers.
With that wraps up Jock Jams. Good job, cuz. Stay tuned after the break. We're going to talk about the Pistons and the unfortunate events that took place on Tuesday. Stick and stay. We'll be right back on the Detroit Sports Podcast. So unfortunately, coming back now to the podcast after the break, we got to hit on the events that took place on Tuesday. I mean, going into it, if you're a pessimist like we are, then you kind of had a feeling that all signs led to the Pistons not getting the breaks and not getting a chance to draft this year. One, in a draft considered to be very deep and talent-laden, we're not going to get to draft. And so it just, right when they said number 9, Charlotte, all hell broke loose. And your only initial response could have been, all you had to do was just freaking amnesty Ben Gordon. I mean, why would you be against it? Yes, you are giving a player a boatload of money, but basically you're telling him, listen, we don't want you. Get lost. Save the cap space. Not too many teams have done it, but in this situation, this was the worst case scenario for our Pistons. Tom Gores, it just seems like every decision and every luck outcome that comes about has been horrible. We don't get a draft pick this year in a draft that's considered deep. Next year's draft is so-so. There's some names that we'll talk about down the line. But this draft, the top 3, why couldn't we move up to the top 3? Why did it have to be Cleveland? I mean, because it was tweeted out so many times. The odds of Cleveland getting the number 1 pick this many times in a row is like 0.0007.
You mean to tell me that NBA draft lottery's on the up and up? Get the hell out of here.
They do say they have a witness.
Get the hell out of here.
I know, it's kind of odd that Cleveland's...
Hey, I could be a witness too, and you could be shoveling all kinds of money in my back pocket. Nice manila envelope stacked with $100 bills. Get the hell out of here.
Dude, and it's so disappointing too because the Pistons are obviously rebuilding, and they are going into the 2014-2015 season with a new administrative staff, with Stan Van Gundy being the president and head coach. Because basically, we are now forced to go into free agency. Or the other likely scenario, in my opinion, is if you trade Greg Monroe, I think he's worth first-round talent. And a team that obviously we'd have to call, and it's kind of insulting, is a team that lucked out. You have to call Charlotte. I mean, they have now 2 picks in the first round. They may be willing to give us something, give us their first-round pick, wherever it ends up being, for Greg Monroe. But it just sucks that this is what happened with the Pistons. It's so frustrating because it seems like every time we take 1 step forward, it's like 4 steps back. Unfortunately, it's sad to say, but we're looking at another season with Josh Smith, Brandon Jennings, and Andre Drummond. And I just don't know how many wins. I don't know if they can break the streak of 5 consecutive years not being in the postseason. What was your thoughts on that awful Tuesday night?
Actually, I want to know what your initial reaction was to finding out that they didn't get any draft picks in the first round.
It was obvious. It was like, shit, gosh. And I just tweeted out, no. And it's just, I kind of was bracing myself for it. And I just was like, you know what? Joe D left, this is the legacy Joe D left us, was, he gave us a great first start of his career as a general manager, but his last 6-7 years have been horrible. And this is a legacy. It's like when a girlfriend dumps you and you walk in on her screwing your best friend. And then afterwards, you find out that she had money that she never told you about and spending it on him. And never spend it on you.
It was that bad, huh?
It was horrible. I mean, how many awful analogies can I give you on how awful it is? It's just, what makes it worse is there are players 15 deep in this draft. We needed to draft in this pick, in this year's draft. And so what happened was we had to have a pick in the top 8 to keep it. So if we did not lose the pick this year, then for sure next year the pick was gone unless the Pistons got the number 1 pick. So for everyone that said tanking sucks, this is what you got. I would have advocated then take the pick this year and tank next year. Get that number 1 pick. I mean, I'm talking about go all out tank effort. 10 wins, 15 wins. Do what you got to do. I mean, I originally wasn't a believer in tanking, but how many superstars have to go to other teams? When do we get a superstar? It's kind of like we need to have a movement here. 1 superstar for the Pistons. And obviously we have a budding one in Andre Drummond, but that's like 5-6 years away to get into his prime. We need a superstar. And unfortunately, we'll talk about it. We have to, you have to calm me down, but we have to find one now in free agency. And they just, obviously, if they're free agents, the likelihood of one coming here is awful.
It's not good.
It's not good.
My initial reaction, I just sat there and I laughed. Like I literally laughed.
Yeah,
like,
I thought so.
While you're going over this, I'm sitting here and I'm smiling, and I have no idea why I'm this happy that the Pistons don't get the draft in the first round. You know what I really feel? I really feel like everything bad that kind of came about with the end of Joe D's regime has now just culminated in this one night with this pick, and we're gonna have to relive it on draft day. But it's all culminated, and this is it. It's all wrapped up now in a nice little, neat little bow. And once this year's done, it's over with. Like, you can just kind of move on from the Joe D era. And I really think that's why I'm so happy with it. Because if the Pistons would have got the pick, next year they would have lost their first round draft pick. It was one of those things where they're either losing it this year,
they were number 1.
Or they were losing, right. They're either losing it this year or they're losing it next year. It's just one of those things. So I'm happy that it's all done with now. We can finally, it's almost like you're washing your hands. All that whole burden of just Joe D's regime, the end of it at least is now just off your shoulders. It's going to suck. Stan Van Gundy's now in a bad spot. He's got to go out there and, like you said, he's got to talk to free agents. He's got to get guys that want to come here and want to play. And that's all he can do. He does have a piece, though. He does have one piece, and you mentioned it. He's got Greg Monroe. He can try to facilitate some type of sign and trade with Greg Monroe and go get something. You realize a team like the Philadelphia 76ers have 6 picks in this draft? 6 picks.
Wow.
The Pistons have 1. So what can happen is, I mean, this seems a little bit long and drawn out, but you can sign Greg Monroe, trade him away to Philadelphia, hopefully get, I don't know, maybe their 3rd round pick. Philadelphia then can package 4 of their 2nd round picks and move up in the draft and get something else. They could actually package 4 of their picks and their number 1.
You mean to specify? You mean the 3rd pick, not the 3rd round pick?
The 3rd pick. Yeah. I'm sorry, I apologize. Their 3rd overall pick, and then move up in the draft again. So it's not hurting Philadelphia at all. 'Cause like I said, they got 6 draft picks in this draft. So what they need to do is it sucks because Greg Monroe is a nice piece. You would like to get rid of Josh Smith and you'd like to get rid of his bloated contract and keep a guy like Greg Monroe, because I really feel like Greg Monroe, he's a great number 2 guy. I think Andre Drummond's a great number 2 guy. You've got 2 really good number 2 guys. You just need to find that one guy who can take over the game and be that all-star, be that number 1, to really sit there and facilitate to these guys down low and put these guys in good positions. But you can't do anything because you signed Josh Smith. So now your hands are tied. All you can do is sign and trade Greg Monroe. So you have to sign him to some type of contract and then trade him off for a draft pick. And that's all you can do. And then you have to enter free agency. And me, myself, looking at this team and looking at what this team needs, they need a number 2. They need somebody who can shoot the rock. That was part of the problem with this team. They were too big down low, too bunched up down low, and they had nobody on the wing who could sit there and launch a shot. So you got guys out there like Lance Stevenson over in Indiana, Avery Bradley, Evan Turner. These guys who are decent shooting guards, go out there to get them. Lance Stevenson, that guy basically averaged a triple-double every other game this year. I think he led the NBA in triple-doubles. You go out, you get a guy like that, and you sit there, you pair him on the wing. If you can sit there, you can contain Brandon Jennings and make sure that he does more distributing than he does chucking the rock, we might have something here, and Stan Van Gundy might be able to work with something, at least temporarily, to get us into next year's draft.
So the options don't look too good. So we obviously got to talk about what's going on in free agency. And I think that Stan Van Gundy is going to put together a staff that will at least give him the information needed to make the right picks. And so let's just talk about...
By the way, on my list here, Greg Monroe, he's the number 10 overall free agent entering this year.
So obviously the Pistons are going to have some needs that we obviously are going to let go of. Charlie Villanueva. He's off the books.
Hooray!
Finally. Hooray. He's gone. He will no longer be part of the team. Rodney Stuckey likely will test free agency and go somewhere else.
He's gone.
So the Pistons are going to need a player that can create his own shot. A player that can, complement Josh Smith and Brandon Jennings. Now, the issue that we have is Josh Smith had the lowest three-point percentage for someone that took that many shots. 25% on three-pointers, yet he still jacked up over 3 a game. So, obviously, Stan Van Gundy's going to have to do a better job of shot selection for Brandon Jennings and Josh Smith.
You remember that scene in the Mighty Ducks, the very first one, where they're all tied together with a rope, and basically it showed them, like, as a team, you have to work together? Do you remember that scene, yes or no?
Yes.
Kind of, sort of?
Yes.
I really feel like Josh Smith should be tied to Andre Drummond, with a 7-foot rope. Like, you can't go that far out. You can't go shoot three-pointers. You just can't. You've got to sit there and you've got to work on some type of mid-range jumper, and you can't get that far away from the basket. Andre Drummond, you need to stay within 3 feet of the rim at all times. And that way he can't just go out there and just start chucking the rock. It's just, it's so bad watching him play. Oh, it drives me insane.
Caldwell Pope showed some signs as to why they took him in the first round. Not enough to justify that pick over Trey Burke. All right. Don't you think a Nick Stauskas would fit in perfectly here?
Great. That's the piece you need. That's what you would do if you had that pick.
I knew you'd like that. I knew that'd make you smile.
That's the type of guy that they need. I don't care if it's Nick Stauskas or not, but that's the piece you need. That's the guy you need. That's what you have to make this offense work. Because they don't have, you've seen how it worked. We've talked about it. When Kyle Singler was inserted in that starting lineup, they work so much better because he could facilitate a shot from the wing. He could sit there and he could shoot the ball. And he made it most of the time. They don't have that when he's on the bench. They need a guy like that. The Nick Stauskas would work great. He would fit in so perfectly because he would do what you need him to do. He would complement the offense. It'd be outstanding.
Okay, so let's look at. I'm trying to make you happy.
You're trying to grease me up here? What's going on here?
I would say
butter me up a little bit.
I would say we'll have a talk. Should the Pistons draft Gary Harris over Nick Stauskas?
Dude,
either
if
or.
he can shoot the ball, I don't care.
Put the biscuit in the basket.
That's all
It'll
you gotta
be all
do.
good.
I really don't care who it is.
Exactly.
I mean, seriously, we could go to Lebanon and we could draft your third cousin. We could sit there, dress him up, put him in a Pistons jersey. As long as he can shoot the damn ball, I don't care.
And as long as he could demand the ball from Brandon Jennings, just don't let Brandon Jennings shoot threes and Josh Smith. Let them pass the ball, distribute to Kyle Singler, to Nick Stauskas, to Drummond, establish an inside presence, and go from there. But let's look at the list. Who do you got? I see you created a great list. Who are the free agents that you've targeted, and we'll maybe we'll get lucky and pick one of them to contribute right away?
Well, I named the three that I had looked at. And when I had looked at it, I wanted somebody who could shoot the ball, somebody who could kind of facilitate a little bit. And the one guy who I would really like them to go get, on my list, he's ranked number 13 overall, and that's Lance Stevenson. Like I said, the guy basically had a triple-double almost every other game. He averaged 13.4 points, and he averaged 6.6 rebounds, and the guy was an assist machine. He had no problem dribbling and penetrating, kicking the ball out. I think he would be great. I think he'd be a perfect fit because the guy can facilitate his own shot. He can sit there, cut to the basket. He can lay it up and in. If anything, he can sit there and he can dish the ball. So if it was me, if I was Stan Van Gundy, once the playoffs were over and once you could talk to Lance Stevenson, I'd be on the phone with him. He's my number one guy. Another guy that I had sat there and I had looked at was Avery Bradley. He's coming out of Boston. He's done a lot of good things with Brad Stevens as his coach. He averages 14 points a game. He's another guy who doesn't have a problem shooting the ball. He's a little bit, he needs a little bit of work. He's kind of an unfinished product. I wouldn't mind him though because Stan Van Gundy can bring him in. Stan Van Gundy can basically teach him what Stan Van Gundy wants him to do. And I think that would work out okay. Then you've got Evan Turner. We all know about Evan Turner from his days at Ohio State. He's another guy who doesn't really have any confidence when it comes to shooting the ball. He averaged a little over 19 points a game and 6 rebounds a game. So I think Evan Turner would be solid if he can fit into what Stan Van Gundy wants to do. Those are the 3 guys. Those are 3 top 20 guys on the free agent list that I had found that I think would fit perfectly here. The issue is free agents don't like coming to Detroit.
And so you have to overpay to get them.
Yes.
And so that's the problem. We do have money to spend, but at the same time, unfortunately, we have, in order for us, the Pistons, to lure players, because we're not a championship team, we obviously are going to be starting basically at the ground floor of a rebuild without a first-round pick. So then it just, it's just really frustrating. And again, the reason why the mistake that Joe D made was you had the number 2 pick back in 2004. This player would be 10 years into his career.
He's number 2 free agent on the list, behind only LeBron.
Would that be Mr. Carmelo Anthony?
Yeah. Be your boy, Carmelo.
You think Carmelo Anthony could come to Detroit and earn that cred? Because all he does, he's kind of similar to Josh Smith, except more times than not, he makes his shots, but his teams don't get better. He's not a player that, he kind of almost is a perfect Piston in that he'd make all the shots, he'd get 30 points a game, but we still lose. I don't like Carmelo Anthony.
I don't either. I don't think he's one of those guys that you really build around. He's one of those guys you kind of bring in as that final piece, I guess. But I don't think you build around him because I think he's too selfish of a player. I don't like it. It would have been interesting to see if he was brought in to that Piston team. I think if he was brought into that Piston team and he played a different role to start, where it wasn't all that pressure wasn't lumped on him to be the guy initially, I think it'd have been interesting to see how his career would have turned out. You had guys like Chauncey Billups, Rodney Stuckey, Ben Wallace. Those were good locker room guys. Those were guys that you could sit there and, they take you under their wing and they teach you the things to do, the things that you do day in, day out that you don't see as a fan, that you don't see as a reporter, that you don't know about. But that hard work goes in and then it translates onto the court. I think it would have been interesting to see him brought in and molded as one of those going to work Pistons.
Okay. A name that kind of is in the forefront, a couple names that I had that I kind of just, in my opinion, and unfortunately they don't really, they play positions that, we have kind of talent in, but Rudy Gay is a player that sometimes is polarizing in that people say, okay, yeah, he's great, but he's inconsistent. He can light up the score sheet. Rudy Gay is a free agent. He's a scorer, and I think the problem with the difficulty with getting Rudy Gay is teams that miss out on Carmelo Anthony are likely going to try to get. He'll be the next guy up, so
Exactly.
that'll be tough. And another player that obviously is a homegrown guy, went to Michigan State, was one of the first players that left early and kind of started the trend of players leaving Michigan State before they graduated. Zach Randolph, double guy. He's been playing in Memphis. He kind of knows that if he continues his career in Memphis, it's just going to be tough to get through to the finals with San Antonio and OKC with Kevin Durant going into his prime. If he stays in Memphis, his career will stall. He'll never, ever reach the finals. He'll never get a ring.
I just don't see those guys fitting in.
Exactly. And that's the tough
roster.
part.
That's the issue. I just don't see them fitting in.
Listen, cuz, blow it all up. Did you think there's a player on this roster that's a keeper? Blow it up. Andre Drummond. That's it.
That's it. You know what? Andre Drummond, and I would keep Kyle Singler. I would keep him. I think he's got a good shot. I think he's a good team guy.
Also, other free agents that I see on the list, Dirk Nowitzki, he's going to stay in Dallas.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
Paul Gasol, he's a center. We already got a center, and he's much older than Drummond. So the options that you presented are really...
Here's a guy kind of down the lines. Jody Meeks from L.A., plays with the Lakers. He's a deep threat. The guy likes to shoot beyond the arc. That could possibly work. I know it's not a fancy name. I know it's not a fancy name, but that's the kind of guy that you're going to get unless you're willing to overpay. And I'm not really sure what Stan Van Gundy wants to do his first year here.
I guess we have to temper our attitudes toward the Pistons and understand that we have to look for any signs of progress with this team. I just think that it's disappointing now that we're not going to get a first-round pick, but at the same time, if Van Gundy makes the right moves and assembles the pieces together, 30, 35 wins next year could likely, on the high end of the 30s and the 35 to 40 wins, could get you into the 7th, 8th seed. And so that'll be progress. Get to the playoffs. So the road is uphill. The Pistons are going to have a tough time rebuilding, and this latest catastrophe and Cleveland getting the first pick just really set them back. And unfortunately, we have to live with that. And that's just the way it is. And I'm just kind of looking forward to seeing where... Actually, we're looking at a rebuild from the ground up. It's going to be tough. We're going to have to test our patience, you and I, next year, because it's going to be a lot of bad basketball with the team that it's assembled as is. And just hopefully Stan Van Gundy brings in pieces that can gel and can put together at least some entertainment out there at the Palace. So that's just where we're at, and that's unfortunately the way it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, you know what? Like I said, when I found out the news, I just sat there and I had to sit back and I had to laugh. And I felt good about it. I know that sounds kind of sick and twisted, a little bit demented, but I felt really good about it because I really feel like now we've hit rock bottom. This is it. I don't know if you can sink any worse than this. I mean, maybe the only way is you sit there and you go out there and you only win 8 games next year. But this is rock bottom. We've hit it. It's now, like you said, it's an uphill road. We just got to sit there and we just got to push the boulder up the hill here. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Stan Van Gundy can do. I'm hoping he's creative enough to be able to build essentially from scratch because that's what he's got to do now. So it'll be interesting. Next year will be interesting. This offseason will be interesting.
Another great podcast, cuz I really do want to wish you best of luck on your wedding. It's going to be a great time. No shenanigans. Just like I said, on your wedding, nothing is perfect. I can get from experience. My photographer showed up to the church half an hour late. He went to the wrong church.
I remember that.
So weird stuff happens at your wedding. You just got to roll with the punches. Understand you only get one shot at it. The day's going to go by really quick, and it's just a chance to share the day with your family. So as long as you can keep a positive attitude with all that, then it's going to be a great day.
Yeah, I look forward to this next chapter of my life. Should be a good time. If anything, I can always file for a divorce.
We aren't hoping for that. We are hoping that you have a long and
I'm the pessimist of this group.
All right.
I don't know if you noticed that or not.
For the Jock, Adam Strozinski.
She's a really good girl, honestly. She really is. She takes care of me.
For the Jock, my cousin, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. This has been the Detroit Sports Podcast. Thanks, everyone, for downloading. See you next week.
Let's go, Dead Arm Gang. I think he comes off as just an asshole.
Cuz, here's to you, buddy. Coors Light, just for you.